Hey, good morning, everyone, on our social media pages. Greg Akagi with you. We're going to get going with our Ag Issues program on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. And it's going to be a great program that we're going to talk about here in just a bit. We're in a commercial break right now on 580 WIBW, but as soon as we're going, we will get the program started. And as a matter of fact, the open's going on right now. So stand by. We're going to go silent for a second, and we'll get right back to you here. Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you with us on the program this morning. And today we're going to talk about the issue of expungement. But what that is, you might have heard that term before, and we're going to do that here in just a bit. With a couple of representatives from Kansas Legal Services. And we're going to talk about that with Joy Springfield, who is Director of Pro Bono Services with Kansas Legal Services. We're also going to talk about that with Tonya Hamp, Pro Bono Coordinator with Kansas Legal Services, and also the gentleman you hear every couple of weeks on our program. As a matter of fact, he was the one who recommended that we talk about this, and we're happy to do that. Roger McEowen, Professor of Agricultural Law and Taxation at the Washburn University School of Law, as well as a farmer rancher, Rich Porter from Redding, Kansas, who has used employees, hired employees who have gone through the expungement process. And we're going to do that this morning on our Ag Issues program on 580 WIBW, as well as our social media pages on our 580 WIBW Facebook page, as also our Kansas Ag Network Facebook page and our 580 WIBW YouTube page. But before we do all that, let's get our check of the weather. Okay, this is me doing some internal messaging here. Mick, make sure you turn down the program audio because I was getting delayed signal back through the tie line. Just use the StreamYard audio on air. Yeah, and that's just the one on the tie line video. Or tie line audio, excuse me. Right now, folks, we are doing our check of the weather, and we're seeing some cold temperatures out there this morning, colder temperatures, I guess. We actually have some freezing temperatures down in western Kansas and even portions of central Kansas as well. And so we're doing that on air, and we'll be back with you shortly here as far as what we're seeing temperature-wise and getting back into the program. So as we mentioned earlier, it's going to be a great program, and we'll get to that here in just a second here. All right. Thank you very much, meteorologist Dan Holliday, with an update on the forecast. Right now in the capital city, clear sky, 43 degrees at Boyd Airport, clear 39 degrees this morning at Ford's Field. As we mentioned last hour, plenty of sub-freezing temperatures in portions of western Kansas, including down to 27 this morning in Colby. But even in getting into the central parts of the state, 28 degrees at Hayes this morning, 30 degrees this morning in Great Bend. On this morning's Ag Issues program, it is a pleasure to bring on the program. We have several guests, and especially if you're watching on our social media pages on our 580 WIBW Facebook page, also our Kansas Ag Network Facebook page, and our 580 WIBW YouTube page as well. We're going to talk about expungement and what that is all about. We're pleased to be joined this morning by Joy Springfield, who serves as the statewide director of pro bono services with Kansas Legal Services. Joy, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Also joining us, Tonya Hamp, pro bono coordinator with Kansas Legal Services as well. Tonya, good morning to you.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Also joining us is Rich Porter, who is from Redding, Kansas, but he has had experience in hiring employees who have gone through the expungement process. Rich, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here.
And also joining us, you hear him every couple of weeks on 580 WIBW, Roger McEowen, professor of Agricultural Law and Taxation at the Washburn University School of Law. And Roger, good morning to you.
Good morning, Greg. Good to be with you.
And I'm going to start with you first, Roger. This is something that you and I have discussed here for a while as far as having this program on, but the importance of the program, and obviously Joy and Tonya will talk about that shortly, but the importance of this program and what it is able to do as far as for future employees are concerned who may have some issues before they go through the expungement process.
Yeah, and Greg, just a little bit of background on this. This is actually the reason we're here today. It derives from a conversation that Rich and I had in the summer. And we were talking on various things, and Rich brought up the topic of expungements and said, why don't you see if you can work this in your seminars, your radio, your TV discussions. And I asked him, I said, well, let's talk about this a little bit. And as Rich unfolded it, he explained how this has been helpful with his ranching operation there in the Flint Hills, and thought, yeah, this is an important topic. I think other farmers and ranchers will find this discussion today pretty beneficial, and we're glad to have Joy and Tonya with us to talk about exactly how this works. And of course, then Rich can share his experiences as to the benefit that he gets for his ranching operation. So I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Joy, let's start with you. And for those who they may be familiar with the term expungement, this obviously has to do if someone has a criminal record, but a process they can get through the expungement to get that off their record as well. But there are several, obviously, other steps that need to take place. So can you start walking us through that?
Yeah, thank you. To get an expungement, and what an expungement means in Kansas, they're different by state. So in Kansas, it just means to seal your record from the public. So it's not like actually that, but it's just sealed from the public. And the way that you do that is you have to, it's a lot of different steps that you need to take. First step is to make sure you're fully off paper, off probation, or parole. That's the first step. And then not to get in have any issues for the next 3 to 5 or 7 years, depending on what your charge is. And then another step is also to make sure if the court has charged you with any fees or fines, pay all that off. And Tonya can talk about the rest of the steps if you like. But those are the big main ones, because a lot of DAs and courts, they will not grant an expungement if you have not paid off your fines and fees for your case.
Paying those off, very important as well. But Tonya, take us through the next steps of this, because as we mentioned earlier, this is not there's 3 or 4 steps. This is definitely a multi-step process.
Well, in order to get through an expungement, your offense first has to be an expungible offense. So capital murder, there's like a list of things that aren't expungible. So capital murder, any type of murder like first degree, voluntary manslaughter, sexual battery, aggravated assault, driving under the influence, driving a commercial vehicle under the influence, rape, indecent liberties with children, aggravated,
all those sex crimes.
Yeah. So Yeah, so abuse of a child, those things are not expungible. And like Joy said, there's a 3-year waiting period on some of those infractions. And then on the higher end infractions, like the class A, B, or C felonies, then you'll have a 5-year wait period on those. And there's a list of those out there for you.
Now, let me ask you.
And you have to make sure that the court sees you as, I guess you could say, redeemed or being productive member of society. And so you kind of have to prove that. You prove that by not getting in any kind of situation with law enforcement after you're off probation. So you can't ask for an expungement and then have a case out there pending, have another case, or, and it's not settled, or having a felony out there, or being on probation for it. They probably will reject you. So it's a lot of stuff. So when you call us, we vet you and we tell you all that information and check your record to see if you're eligible, and if you're not, we tell you what steps you need to take to get eligible.
And that leads me into my next question. And Joy or Tonya, I'll let you, either one of you, answer this. How is Kansas Legal Services, or how are you involved in this as far as being able to help those who are going through the process, or where do you guys come in?
Well, we take expungement cases year round, but our staff does. But we have about 50 attorneys around the state. That's it, and 11 offices. So we can't do it all. So what we do is, part of my position is to have clinics throughout the state. And I ask for volunteer attorneys. I'm an attorney. I ask for other attorneys to volunteer their time to help members of our community. So we'll have expungement clinics, like we have one coming up in Johnson County on October 25th. And then December 12th, we're going to Dodge City. And we're coming back to Emporia, as I told Mr. Porter, next year. We'll be back in Emporia. And we just try to hit a lot of different places, especially rural places or big urban areas as well. So that helps by being able to help a lot of people at one time, because we'll have volunteer attorneys to assist us. And we also have, right now, we have this new app that we're piloting. It's called Clear My Record app. So it makes the process go faster for the attorneys, so we can help more people faster. So that's what we're doing.
And Tonya, talked about donations. That is important to Kansas Legal Services. We brought up the Facebook page here to be able to do that, but this is something that anyone can donate to KLS to be able to help out in that aspect.
Oh, yes.
And that, of course, is the Kansas Legal Services page to be able to do that. And boy, that is something that is extremely important. Now, how does this all tie in with agriculture? This is where we bring in Rich Porter into this conversation. And Rich, we had mentioned earlier, you have experience in hiring employees that have gone through the expungement process. How did you learn about this process first? And take us through some of the experiences you've had.
Yes, I paid for 4, and it was dominantly people it wasn't really employees, but it was people in my community or relatives of employees. And I funded the first one so to get expungement. I was only thinking about so they could go hunting with their friends. But immediately the person's self-esteem was totally different. They were no longer defined by the worst day of their life. And what cost me $2,000 to $3,000, I asked the person to take $100,000 and have the felony back on their record. And the person said, I wouldn't take $1 million to have it back on my record. So I paid for 4, but these were in my small community, people I knew the situation of, and I was wanting to expand and help some additional ones. Then, thank goodness, I got connected with Kansas Legal Services right at the time when they were making a major push to increase the number of expungements they do for lower income, under like $27,000 for a family of 4. And so I'm merely donating money to them. They were already doing exactly what I was wanting to do, and they can do it in an even more cost-effective manner. So it was just bringing great joy to people. And if somebody has a 2-year prison sentence, that should not be a life sentence. And so once they get the expungement, when they go for a job application, have you ever been convicted of a felony? They check no. And that's reflective of who they are now. A person expunged actually will have a slightly lower chance of causing a crime than the general public. So it's redemption. I'm done.
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about this issue on this edition of the Ag Issues program right here on 580 WIBW. Stay with us. All right. For those of you on the social media page, we're in a commercial break right now on 580 WIBW, and we're going to have plenty more to talk about this issue. This is a great issue of discussion, but hopefully one that you're able to think about as well. By the way, they had mentioned earlier about the 2 expungement days, and you can see on the bottom of your screen where they are at. Wednesday, October 25th. So 9 days away? That one will be in Olathe. You've got the website there that can give you what is going on. But then we have a second one that will be coming up, and that is on Tuesday, December 12th. And that will be, and Joy, that was in Dodge City, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And they'll have more about that on their website as well. So we will be back here in just a bit out of the commercial break, and we're going to talk more about this issue coming up on the Ag Issues program. So stand by, and we will come back here in just a bit. So, and as I jokingly refer to, I have the program audio in this year. I have the StreamYard audio in this year. So, Nick back at the studio, sometimes he'll talk to me. So, it's interesting having 2 different people talking in your ears at the same time.
Be careful with that, Greg. Some may say as long as there's nothing in the middle that's blocking the transmission between both ears, you're fine.
Yeah. All right. We are back on the Ag Issues program this morning here on 580 WIBW, talking about the issue of expungement. And we're talking about that with Joy Springfield this morning, Statewide Director of Pro Bono Services with Kansas Legal Services, Tonya Hamp, Pro Bono Coordinator with Kansas Legal Services, Rich Porter, who has had experience in being a part of helping those who have gone through the expungement process. He's a farmer rancher from Redding, Kansas, and Roger McEowen, Professor of Agricultural Law and Taxation at the Washburn University School of Law. The idea for this program came from a conversation that Roger and Rich had earlier this year, and we're glad to bring this to light as well. So, Joy, you talked about the expungement day that is coming up here during our first one in Johnson County in Olathe on October 25th. If someone is interested in going to that day, what are they going to be experiencing, or what will be talked about during that day?
If they go, we'd like for them to pre-register, and they can just email us. I think our email address is on that link and also on our social media, or they can call our number. But once they go, what they'll experience is meeting with a free attorney, a free pro bono attorney, and the attorney will interview them. The attorney will already hopefully have their records, unless they're walking. We'll look up their records to see what cases can be expunged. We'll let them know if all the fees have been paid, and if not, we'll see if we can find some funding to help pay their fees, as long as it's not too much. But if it's paid, we'll go through a series of questions and we'll draft their documents. So we're drafting, it's multiple documents. That's why a lot of people can't do it on their own. And we even had Harvard did a study showing that if given all the tools, most people will not go forward with their expungement. They need help of a legal, someone in the legal profession to assist them. So having a bunch of attorneys there to assist them is great. So we'll go through the documents, draft the documents. They'll review their documents, the petition, order, etc. Review them. They look good. We give them to them. They go down and file them in court. And so for the Johnson County one, we are having it at the courthouse. And so they'll just go downstairs and file them with the court. And then once the DA, if the DA approves it, then the judge they'll send it to the judge and the judge will grant their expungement. They'll get an order of expungement in the mail.
Tonya, that you both of you and Joy have mentioned about pro bono services. This, of course, talking about lawyers who come and have basically do their services for free, which is an important process to be able to do that. How much of involvement have you seen from lawyers willing to do their services pro bono for this?
Well, we have, at our next clinic, we're going to be having about 19 volunteer attorneys from T-Mobile, which is really, really good. With each clinic, we try, to have enough volunteers for the demand of clients that we have. So, that process is a whole nother ball game, but, yeah. But having those volunteers, it really makes an impact because we're able to get more expungements done and we're able to service more clients. So that's one part of our role here is to try to get volunteers at our clinics. Attorney
Rich, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that we try to get as many volunteers as we can to assist us with the clients at our clinics. So.
Rich, one of the things you talked about earlier was the fact that you do more via donations and how important that is as far as being able to continue funding for an issue like this that is not it costs money to be able to do what Kansas Legal Services is able to provide.
Yes, Kansas Legal Services, they do fantastic work and very cost effectively. And so one, they could probably do it for less cost per expungement than a regular private attorney. Private attorneys are wonderful and great, but I also, with my small community, I was needing to find more than just the 4. And they have a caseload comes in. Kansas Legal Services, they both have people coming in asking about it, and Kansas Legal Services reaches out to try to have people be aware of getting the expungements. And so to me, the easiest way to donate was they were already doing fantastic work cost effectively. So I'm merely donate money to them and will be referring clients to them also.
One of the things, we talked about, if you are have a criminal background, there are things about, am I able to vote? Am I able to do certain things? One that in discussion that we had, and I'll let any of you answer this, is for them, even though they may have their record expunged, in getting a commercial driver's license, because say if you go into an agriculture field or something like that, you would obviously more than likely need a CDL. Are there any issues with that type of process?
For a CDL, I looked it up, and some felonies would bar it and some would not. And if somebody faced that issue, they could do it. But what was also for a person to get a license to be a barber or a beautician, they couldn't. Right. And here you have somebody, many people have done something wrong. Not everybody got in trouble, and not everybody had resources to pay for a lawyer to help them mitigate those troubles. And this individual they made a mistake. They now realize they made a mistake. they completed their sentence, they paid off their fines, they went 3 to 5 years, depending on the felony, that bad event no longer defines who they are. And so now that they can go on with their life, and like that Harvard Law School study said, the average annual earnings was $5,000 more after an expungement. And one other quick point: it's not like you go out on a street corner and hand expungements out like candy. The individual had to earn it, and not everybody's going to qualify. And maybe 25% would think they might have it. They don't qualify, but it's just basically a recognition that they're like a general member of the public. And just one quick little illustration of a person in my community, they had a child by a previous marriage. They were having trouble getting visitation because of their criminal record, and they only received 1 hour of supervised visitation a week. The only thing changed was their expungement was approved, and the ex-spouse and the judge said, "Oh, you can have unlimited visitation. Take him for every week, any weekend you want the child." The only thing changed was the person had the expungement. So it's basically a good housekeeping seal of approval of you are rehabilitated.
Yeah. Greg, can I add one thing?
Yes.
I was in Independence, Kansas, and I try to travel around different rural areas. And I know one of the big needs pretty much everywhere is childcare. And a lot of people they want to have a daycare or work in a child care center. They cannot because of their criminal record. It won't have anything to do with children because, if something happened with children, that's not expungible. It could be any kind of record, and they are blocked from working there or opening their own daycare. So getting an expungement, I've had some clients that they wanted to do that. Being able to get that expungement, clearing their record, they were able to move on with their life and get a child care license or work in a daycare like they wanted. And that is a super, super big need. I know the state of Kansas is working on that.
Roger, I want to end this with you because we have talked about this issue. I want to pivot just a bit because you wear many hats. And one of the things is also working with Kansas State University. And you have got your upcoming, your KSU Tax Institute dates are coming up.
Yeah, Greg, and I would add to this, I'll give you those dates in a moment and just kind of a quick summary of the topics. But at every one of these locations, we do, since I also work with the Kansas Ag Mediation Service, and the Kansas Legal Services provides attorneys to handle mediation through that if we need them. At each of those locations, we do put out information about the Ag Mediation Service, and I can add in that information, Joy and Tonya, about the expungement services the KLS offers at each of those locations across the state. And Greg, we're going to start with an online event on November 1, and then we'll have 6 in location 2-day tax schools in Garden City, Hayes, Lawrence, Salina, Wichita, and Pittsburgh. And then we'll end with a second online event on December 19. I do not think we'll have significant or any perhaps tax legislation in between those dates this year, probably next year or definitely in 2025. But we're going to cover a lot of topics. That's 16 hours of continuing education for attorneys and CPAs and others that prepare returns. And I know, and Rich, you might find this interesting. K-State did a survey a number of years ago, and we discovered that almost 95% of all farm returns prepared in the state of Kansas were prepared by individuals that went through the K-State tax schools. So that is a tremendous impact that those schools have had. And they've been around for over 80 years. And this is my 31st year of being involved with them and teaching at them. And it's myself and Paul Neefer and a friend of mine who teaches at Creighton Law School, Ed Morse. And then we've got a retired individual with IRS, retired from IRS, Kathy Murphy, who is a CPA in the St. Louis area that will also be teaching. And then I'll do a separate 2-hour ethics program on the Friday before the 19th. I think that's December 15, online only, for 2 hours of tax ethics. But all that information is on my blog. It's also on K-State Ag Manager, and people can find that information about our topics that we're teaching, the day-to-day schedule, as well as get registered for one of the events.
All right, Roger, sounds good. And again, Kansas Legal Services. If you'd like to learn more about what they do or donate, go to kansaslegalservices.org. Joy Springfield, Tonya Hamp with Kansas Legal Services. We really appreciate you joining us on the program today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Rich Porter, as always, a pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much for being a part of this conversation as well.
Thank you.
And Roger McEowen, Professor of Agricultural Law and Taxation at the Washburn University School of Law. As always, a privilege. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. See you in a couple of weeks.
And this is Ag Issues for this morning here on 580 WIBW. Stay with us when we come back. We'll get an update on the news headlines, and we'll check the weather forecast that comes up next.